Yes. What the police really should have done is allowed the protesters to move around freely throughout the city. And what they should have done, because they had the resources, they had helicopters and tanks. By tanks, I mean they had these kind of, I don't know how to describe them, somewhere between an assault vehicle and a truck, these big armored truck things. And 19,000 riot cops. They could have allowed the kind of peaceful protesters to walk anywhere in the city and instantly arrested these so-called black bloc anarchists. So, yeah, it's just. But what I could see, James, what was very apparent to Dan Dix and myself was that it seemed to be they were using the Toronto G20 protests as a militarized police training drill to deal with an urban fallout situation after maybe a second economic collapse or after a false flag released flu where civil society breaks down. So it did very much seem that we were part of some sort of military army training taking place in a central city, because Dan Dix and I were actually part of that. It was actually at Queen and Spadina, where they did the kind of blocking off of the protesters. It was like, men, women, children, dogs, parrots, anyone they could corral into this small street. We were part of that protest, and luckily we had to break off from that to appear on the Alex Jones show. And then those 400 people got circled by the police, and they were doing this weird tactic, which I'm sure you've seen the videos, where they had the riot cops all lined up. And then they would open up for a second, 2 or 3 other officers would run in and grab a girl around the neck and tear her away from her boyfriend as she's screaming and crying, and they'd carry on doing that. So it was almost like from Alice in Wonderland, the kind of card soldiers just suddenly snapping sideways. A few thugs would run in and grab people, and the fact that I was kept in a massive black warehouse with industrialized strip lighting in cages, and all I could see was endless rows of cages as far as the eye could almost see in this big American football stadium-sized warehouse. It was a protester processing center, the PPC, and the very fact that they have a center exclusively to deal with protesters is a scary, scary watershed that we've passed now.
It sure is. It sure is. And you're right. I mean, there's no doubt this is just the latest test of the latest upgrade of the urban warfare fallout scenario planning that they're doing, and it's just a laboratory for this type of thing. And we saw the horrific results of that. Not only the warehouse processing, but also the cops ripping the legs off of prosthetic legs off of amputees, women saying that they were strip searched by male officers and violated, and just horrific story after horrific story. And I recently saw a video of a police officer when confronted by people saying that they didn't have to let him search their bag because this was Canada and there's the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. He said, "This isn't Canada, this is the G20," which was a horrific, horrific thing to hear from someone in a uniform like that. Almost incomprehensible. And just to play devil's advocate, and I'm not obviously disparaging your work or anything you're doing, but the question is, to what extent do we feed into the system by engaging it in this type of thing?
That's a very good question, and you actually touched upon this in one of your earlier podcasts about a year and a half ago, when you said that perhaps shows like the Alex Jones or even the Corbett Report or maybe the Love Police, we are an inoculation, where we're almost like the pressure release valve, which maybe people kind of gather around on the internet and say, "Oh well, Alex Jones, James Corbett, they're doing all the information. We can just settle back." So I'm very I resonate strongly with the idea of total resistance, and I need to face a very difficult choice in the near future, because if I were to send a lawyer or turn up to the Toronto courts at the appointed dates, it would be in a way consenting to their invitation to be tried by a system which I believe has been fully compromised by the dark forces, of we shall call them the Illuminati or the corporate scumbags which run this world. So I worry. I was once called a court jester, sucking the New World Order's COCK, which was interesting. And some other people say it's a distraction to have people running around protesting when there's other real issues at stake. So it's a very, very good and pertinent question, James, that you ask, is how much are we playing into their system? Between doing what I do and moving to the highlands in Colombia to train with the Fuerzas Armadas Revolucionarias de Colombia, the FARC, this is all I can think of right now. But if, let's say, hypothetically, I do not recognize the authority of the Canadian courts over me, and there is an attempt to extradite me because Canada and Britain are, close partners in the Commonwealth, I would have to make a decision to disappear and go underground and live my life as a fugitive. Hopefully, it will not come to that because I believe this is just a show trial and insanity. But let me ask the question back at you, James. How much are we playing into the parts of this disgusting system which brutalizes hundreds of millions of innocent people?
Well, I ask you the question because it's a question I think about all the time, and I think about increasingly, and I don't know how to answer it. I don't know if we are playing into the system, but again, I don't know what else to be doing. I don't think I'm going to be running away to Colombia to join the FARC, so I don't know what the alternatives are really, but I just know that things seem to keep getting darker and darker, and there has to be a way to as you say, as your whole point is to lower the fear and to raise love, but it seems like it's a very uphill battle.
Yeah, it is an uphill battle, and a lot of people tell me that things need to get worse before they get better, and people said that my getting arrested twice in such ridiculous circumstances did help expose the illusion of police there to serve and protect. But I think maybe it does need to get a bit worse before it gets better, because for the average man and woman on the street working in an office, earning a bit of money for their pension, making their car payments, paying their mortgage, they don't want to admit there is a problem until the problem comes to them. So until their son is beaten and detained by thugs, or until their sister has her private parts fingered by court staff at some detention center on the outskirts of Toronto, then they won't want to know about it. So it sounds really horrible to say this, but we just need to have the power structure in place keep exposing itself and make mistakes, and it does need to carry on making mistakes. And I think it was from the film Gandhi, who said through their brutality upon us, we will show them our humanity. So I'm not a total devotee of what Gandhi advocated. I believe the political situation in India was turning anyway before Gandhi came on the scene. But I don't know if I'm strong enough or man enough to take all these blows and not react like a human being, because there is something romantic about the Colombian Revolution, or the struggles of the Irish Republican Army against the British during the Troubles in Ireland. I am very ambivalent towards violent uprisings, because sometimes I can see that in order to remain human, you have to take sides. And there's a very interesting essay, I can't remember who wrote it, maybe even a Canadian, called Pacifism as Pathology, which I recommend all the listeners and viewers to look up online, Pacifism as Pathology. And it talks about how the Black Panthers or some other groups in America were basically neutered by the kind of libertarian, liberal advocates of total passive and peaceful resistance, when in fact some of these groups were starting to do some good work. So I hope we never have to come down to that. But if I'm faced with a choice between allowing thugs into my house to to put my family into a camp, or fighting back, I think the choice would be very easy to make when the time comes. But like you, James, I wrestle with the question every day.
Yeah, well, these are fundamental questions, and they're not easy to answer. But just personally, I'm not on the side of violence. I don't think we're going to win through violence. I really don't think so. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm right, but I just cannot advocate violence as a way of bringing peace. I just fundamentally don't think that that's right. And I don't know what the answer is. I mean, we're all just looking for these answers. But I guess, so the question is, assuming that this ridiculous show trial coming up in Ottawa or in Toronto does not, ruin you forever. I mean, how will this affect your work? How has this changed you, or how have these experiences affected your outlook?